It's Ramon, Kayla, and Will live from Tennessee Titans training camp, RKW. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. Pleased to be joined by the Tennessee Titans President of Football Operations, Chad Brinker, kind enough to join us here at the table. What's going on, Chad? Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, appreciate you. Joint practice is getting started. A ton to talk about. Want to get into your time as a running back, Northwestern, all of these different things. I feel like there's so much we could talk about, but want to start with what you see from this team right now through this point of camp and preseason. What sticks out about where this team has improved so far during preseason?
Yeah, I like the direction that we're heading right now with our new head coach and Brian Callahan. And I thought the last preseason game was a good indicator of where we are. We have a lot of work to do. Don't get me wrong. We do. But I thought we had a clean operation on Saturday night. We were efficient. I don't think we had a penalty until like the third quarter. Yeah. So I thought that was evident of, good coaching. Special teams played well. A lot of guys are competing, playing hard. Our defense tackled well. There's just a lot to be excited about. Some young players are developing, which is another sign of really good coaching. I think we got excellent teachers on this staff. So we're heading in a positive direction, but we do still have a lot of work to do.
So as that work continues with the Seattle Seahawks today and tomorrow and the preseason game number 2 on Saturday, where does this exercise of joint practices help you the most in evaluating this team?
Yeah, I think with the reduction in preseason games, this gives us another opportunity to get our starters some live reps in a controlled environment. So I've been involved in a number of these joint practices. They've been successful. A lot of evaluators love it because we get a chance to not only evaluate our own team, but we get to evaluate the opponent that we're going up against and kind of seeing the back roster guys, the guys that are fighting for spots. So we really enjoy that. Just see the guys be able to go out there and compete against another team and just kind of measure where we are. And it's always a good environment, so we really enjoy it.
Chad Brinker with us this morning. I can't just call you Chad by your first name at all. Chad Brinker's with us this morning, man. You guys are football guys too. I think when we drop the word analytical and all those type of catchphrases, right? People think that you're outsmarting the game, right? And it's not necessarily that, man. You guys still have a brute and just raw approach to how you guys are going about this process, correct? Yeah,
we do. I'm a football guy at its core. I grew up in this business as a scout. Started to add the salary cap component to my toolbox over the years, and then started to build in the analytics and things of that nature. But between Brian and myself, we're football men at its core. This game is a war of attrition. It hasn't changed all that much. You got to have size and speed on that field. You got to be disciplined. You got to be tough. All those things factor in it. But there are ways that I think that you can. The game is starting to get modernized in different ways. With the use of analytics, you just become more informed as a decision maker. And I think those things kind of help you in building your strategies and making decisions.
And one of those big decisions came with a big man this year in the second round. T'Vondre Sweat, and you speak about the analytics, like the money ball side of things, right? Mm-hmm. When you mentioned him and the risk for whatever it is to draft a guy like him, what did you have to put aside to say if it hits, and it's still if at this point with most rookies, what was that conversation like with you guys on this pre-draft stuff, the weight, the size, the work ethic, all of those rumblings we heard pre-draft to actually start taking him?
Yeah, I think the first thing that Rand, myself, and Coach and others, we all talked about, when you're building a football team, I think from a principle standpoint, a lot of things haven't changed. You try to build it from the inside out. You want to build your offense and defensive lines. We were able to get Skoronski last year, JC this year on the offensive side. We have Big Jeff, anchoring the defense in the middle, and to be able to add another piece next to him that can be that guy to demand double teams and push the pocket, the middle of the pocket. And T'Vondre had all those skill sets, but there's just not that many people on this earth that walk around with his size and strength and power, and it was really hard to ignore. So I don't know how much the analytics really went into that, other than this is a huge man that is athletic, I mean, it's amazing how he can move at his weight. Just the athleticism, his ability to get to an edge, to push the pocket, to stay on his feet, to have the balance and body control. It was just truly impressive. And, he played a lot of snaps at the University of Texas. I mean, he didn't come off the field a whole lot. So we just felt like he was just too good to pass up at that point, and we really wanted to continue to build around the interior lines.
And that's where, real quick, Caleb, like those decisions are just football decisions, and not necessarily we're checking a box because the paper said we're supposed to do this.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So, speaking of football decisions, explain to us, when we say president of football operations, Chad Brinker, how you kind of fit in with the head coach and GM, and maybe where your combination of playing the game and being a scout has really benefited you in now this type of role.
Yeah, I think I'll say this. I'm here to bring the entire football staff together and to make sure everybody has what they need to succeed in their role. And I have a job where I get to wake up every single day and help people succeed and help this team succeed. Now, with that being said, when I sat down with Amy at the beginning of this new structure and just listened to her describe and talk about what her vision is for this football team and for this organization, there were really three themes that I kind of heard her say. And those were, she wanted clarity in structure. She wanted consistency in performance, and she wanted stability in her organization. And if you look at the great organizations over the last 20 to 30 years in the National Football League, they are the most stable franchises. So, I've been tasked with kind of helping build out that strategy and working with Rand Carthon and working with Brian Callahan. The way this structure is set up, it's this league and is just getting the business is getting multifaceted. It is complex. When I first got in this league, there was maybe 18 coaches. Now on average, there's 30. There wasn't an analytics department when I started. Now everybody has one. When it comes to even the software and the football information systems, that was done by the IT department, or you outsourced it. Now we have this stuff in-house. Like, the teams keep growing and getting bigger and bigger, and it's hard enough to pick these players and select the right players, from whether via the draft or free agency, let alone to have one person handle all these factors. Plus, you have to get that product right on the field. Because let's not kid ourselves. If we don't draft well or we don't select the right players, all this other stuff doesn't matter. It just doesn't. But it's the way that we're set up as a structure. It allows Brian Callahan to focus on the team and coach his football team. It allows Rand Carthon to build the roster and evaluate players and do the things that he's really good at. And then I fit in where I'm supporting Brian and Rand, because I have the background in football, but also all these other department heads, empowering leaders to become leaders. And just to service, I look at this role as the ultimate service position. And I'm here to serve everybody in this organization. That's what true leadership is, to elevate them to another level and allow them to be successful.
I love that. And we've already seen that in the short amount of time you guys have been a staff together. You talk about analytics, and that is a newer part to the game and how staffs are growing in that department. You guys have made some new hires. What's the balance of not too much, but also staying up with the new age of football?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think analytics is a broad term, and it means different things to different people. And if I can distill it down at the basic level, we are collecting data in multiple areas to help us make more informed decisions. For example, I sat down with our team at the start of this season and said, look, there's three principles I want us to look at heading into the season. Number one, we got to balance the short-term wins with long-term commitment. Where can we get those short-term wins right now? And where we can get those right now is with our coaching staff. We're getting ready to start a season. Let's build out the in-game management, situational football, the advanced scouting reporting. We were able to acquire and hire a guy named Scott Cohen that came over from the Baltimore Ravens, who's been in the league over 30 years and did research and data in the football space and scouting, and he's been in coaching. He's been in a lot of different areas. He's also helped myself and Rob Ritterer, we moved into a strategy role to kind of work and be that liaison between the analytics and coaching. So that's one area where we're growing. Another thing that I talked to him about is we're not a monolithic entity. What I mean by that is we're not this big organism that's rigid and inflexible. We are serving multiple departments across the football space, from sports science to CAP to scouting to coaching. So we have to be flexible in our approach. We have to wear many hats because we have a small team, and I really believe in small teams of smart people. And then finally is I want us to be a data-informed organization, not a data-driven.
Yeah.
And because at the end of the day, the human makes the decision. We can't forget that. So we're providing data to the decision makers, and they're taking it in from all sorts of sources to make the best decision for the organization.
Smart.
Titans President of Football Operations, Chad Brinker, is our guest. All right, Chad, I read about you that as a junior in high school playing against Indian Valley, you had a run where your helmet popped off. As you were fighting for yards, you got popped in the face by a defender's helmet. You went to the hospital, you got stitches, you came back, and you tried to put yourself back in the game in overtime. You've got to be the only person who's ever done this and also then be in an analytics department in the National Football League.
Yeah, it doesn't sound very smart. I'd like to know where you found that out. I mean, yeah, that wasn't very smart. I wouldn't recommend that.
Players aren't listening. You're
No, yeah,
Right.
exactly.
but just kind of that balance and reading about you and just your background of, smash mouth, 3 yards in a cloud of dust football and being a running back, then pairing that with a graduate degree from Northwestern. It's just an interesting background. I feel like you've kind of been raised in the old school and kind of the new school way. How much does that really influence just the day-to-day of doing your job?
Yeah, I think especially at this level, we're when you get to a level like this, like a president or a CEO type level, you're more of a generalist than a specialist. Now, you have to have deep expertise in 1 to 2 areas where you have the credibility and the respect of your peers, which mine happen to be in scouting and CAP. It really is where my really deep expertise is. But being able to have the range to work across multiple disciplines, and I attribute that to just my training of I was just very fortunate to be in some really special places, not only where I grew up in the state of Ohio, which is a big football state, a lot of really good coaches coming out of that region of the country and playing football at Ohio, but also being in the organization I was in prior to coming here to Tennessee in Green Bay, one of the most stable organizations, one of the most successful. And that place really develop personnel men. I mean, I was talking to Elliot Wolf, as a good friend of mine. He's essentially, they don't call him the general manager, but the GM of the New England Patriots now. And we were at the owners' meetings, and we were just discussing our time in Green Bay. And the room that we sat in, that draft room, we started counting how many of us from the Ron Wolf tree have either led an organization or is currently leading an organization. I think we counted 9 were in that room. So I was very fortunate to be around some really, really special people. And I had them, how do you prepare for something like this? Like, there's no curriculum. It wasn't Northwestern that, prepared me for all this. There's parts of it, yes. But it really comes down to mentorship and exposure. And I was able to have great mentors, and I was able to have the exposure and the experiences I needed to have the opportunity to lead at the level I'm able to lead at.
President of Football Operations, Chad Brinker, with us this morning. Chad, you've been able to be a part of 2 major changes at 2 separate organizations. I think you know where I'm headed. You were part of the staff that drafted Jordan Love, if I'm not mistaken, and also the decision to let Derrick Henry walk this offseason. I mean, it was free agency at that point. How do you get out in front of maintaining a franchise while also planning for the future when it comes to legacy-type guys like Aaron Rodgers and Derrick Henry to be able to say, trust us in how we're going about this? Because Jordan Love seems to now be ready and prime, and Tajay Spears seems now to be ready and prime to, jump into those spots that those guys have vacated.
Those are always really, really tough decisions, especially when you're dealing with a legacy player like that. And it's always tough. So our job is exactly what you just stated, is to balance the need for winning today with building for the future. And we got to constantly have our eye on that, not only the short term, but the long term. So there's a lot that goes into the team building strategies. And as you're looking at, I think Rand, Coach, and myself, what makes this special is we're all aligned on the philosophy on how to build an NFL team and what we believe at its core, and that's drafting and developing. But there are times where you have to adjust. Like in our situation here in Tennessee, we only had 6 draft picks. 2 years ago we had 6 this year, and we only have 5 next year. It's really hard to draft and develop that way. So we came into this offseason and we had to look at our strategy. How are we going to be competitive this year? We had a lot of cap room, not really anybody to pay at a high level within the next couple of years, and we had to go out and kind of build a team and acquire talent out there on the free agent market. I don't think we want to get in the habit of buying a team every year, right, but we want to build it through the draft. But when it comes to those type of players, like not only the Aaron Rodgers of the world or Devontae Adams, I was involved in those decisions as well. Those are always really tough decisions where you're balancing the youth and the age and figuring out what's the best thing for the organization. And I think there's just a method that we have that we work through. It's not perfect. It's never easy. It's never an exact science. But we try to do the best we can with making the best decision and drafting good players that are eventually going to replace those guys as they move out of the organization.
Did you also catch hives with knowing you spent over $300 million in free?
Were hives included?
That's not a value meal right there.
Included in the deal.
No, it's a lot of money. And that goes into play into this other factor that we've been talking about. The salary cap now $255 million.
Yeah.
It's increased 13% since the previous year. There's this concept of people have talked about the wide receiver market exploding, or the quarterback market obviously is exploding. You need $50 million for a quarterback now. Tying these things to a percentage of to the salary cap, and that's not something that what I really look at is the cash. The cash. What is the cash value? For example, we have somewhere around $280 million committed this year to our players, where the cap is $255. So there's ways that you structure these contracts in order to put a competitive team out there and take advantage of some of the accounting rules that are involved.
Chad, as Nashville grows, as the new stadium is in the future, this is a lot of newness to this team in general. What do you guys want to kind of form this organization in being, and what do you guys want to be known for? Obviously, hopefully one of the best NFL teams, right?
No doubt. The number one goal is to win championships. We all know that. But Coach has been talking a lot about there's 2 words that you'll see on the walls in our building, just 2. It's relentlessness and resiliency. And that's what the culture that we're trying to build around here. But there's a lot of excitement right now in Nashville. I think as we head into this season in future years, we want to build a core foundation, which we're starting to build with our roster. We want to develop our young players, and we want to see improvement from year to year, from not only year to year, but game to game, practice to practice. We want to see our quarterback take the next step, improve from year 1 to year 2. It's really hard. We're all trying to win a championship. Every single team's trying to win a championship. But I think we need to focus on the process and not as much as the outcome. And knowing that we have the process right, that the outcome will come in time. And I think that's really our focus heading in this year, because there is a lot of new. Coach put this up in one of our team meetings the other day. We have 20 new coaches.
I saw that.
And 40, well, it might be different now, but at the time, those 43 new players from 2023 to 2024, which is essentially half the roster, has been turned over in 1 year. So now you got to get all those coaches and all those players all coming together and working together and having this. It's so hard to win in this league. That's what makes this game so great, is the fact that it's so hard. And now you're asking all these new people to come together in a matter of weeks or a month to go out there and compete at the highest level, as we all know how hard it is to win in this league.
Chad Brinker has been our guest, Titans President of Football Operations. Appreciate you taking the time this morning.
Well, thank you for
Chad.
having me. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed it.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
I will not
indeed.
bring up any other glory days from your high school running back career. Rand Carthon, every time he sits down with
Oh,
us, he
goodness.
always looks at us and says, all right, are we having fun or are we talking
Yeah.
football? So we're trying to find the balance of a little bit of both.
And anytime you're with Rand, you're going to have fun.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
The other thing, then, too, since you run around with your helmet off, how did you receive Will Levis lowering his shoulder this time? He clearly learned it from you.
We'll just say that Coach and Rand handled that one. With Will, we would rather, let's not take those risks right now.
Yes.
Chad Brinker with us. We really appreciate him joining us. More RKW coming up.